Hello, and welcome to the channel. As we continue Halloween season, I wanted to cover a case which I found particularly eerie. And so it makes sense to head back to a place where we had visited not too long ago. A few blocks from where John List took the lives of his wife, mother, and 3 children, sits 657 Boulevard. Like List's old family home, Knoll, 657 Boulevard would become a famous home in Westfield, New Jersey. Although its fame would be earned for a very different reason. Consider this, as you sit there and watch this in the comfort of your own home, either with a loved one or alone. What if there was someone else, not in the same room, but still able to see you? Someone who could see you watching this very video. Someone able to monitor your every move. Someone who knew intimate details about you. Someone watching your home without you knowing. If you haven't looked outside your window after listening to this, now might be a good time to. Let's begin. Our story begins with the introduction of the Broadus family. Husband Derek and wife Maria had just purchased 657 Boulevard for $1.3 million, which for them was a dream move. Maria had grown up just a few blocks from the home they now occupied, whereas Derek was raised in Maine. He worked for an insurance firm in Manhattan, where he became senior vice president. Maria always had aspirations of moving back to the place where she had grown up and wanted their 3 children to share the same experience as she had. But before they could move into the home, there was renovation work which required completing. The Broaduses would travel to and fro, working on the home in order to make it livable. About 3 days into the renovation work, while painting the home, Derek stepped outside for a moment. In the mailbox, a letter was placed inside. Derek removed the typed letter from its envelope, addressed to the new owners. Dearest new neighbour of 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighbourhood. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. I see already that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that they can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. Who am I? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am in one. Look at all the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one. Look out any of the many windows in 657 Boulevard at all the people who stroll by each day. Maybe I am one. You have children. I have seen them. So far I think there are 3 that I have counted. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or was it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Let the party begin. Signed, The Watcher. The signature was typed in a cursive font. At the time, Derek was alone and it was after 10 p.m. Alarmed by the disturbing tone of the letter, Derek switched off all the lights in the home and contacted the Westfield Police Department. An officer arrived and read the letter, reacting to it in a shocked manner. While there was little he could do, the officer did recommend that John remove pieces of construction equipment from outside the back porch, in case whoever wrote the letter decided to use it to smash a window. After returning to his in-laws, where they were staying while doing up 657 Boulevard, Derek explained the situation to his wife Maria. Troubled by this, they decided to reach out to the last owners of the home, John and Andrea Woods, by email. The Woods family resided at 657 Boulevard for 23 years and had responded to the Broaduses the following morning, telling them that they never received any letters from someone purporting to be the Watcher. Well, that was until a few days before they actually moved out, where a letter was received, which was similar in tone to what the Broaduses had received. But they discarded the letter, assuming it to be a prank. Together, both the Woods and the Broaduses went to the police to report the disturbing letter. Unfortunately though, the police were unable to do much at the time, as no actual crime had been committed. But they advised both parties to remain quiet, as the letters could have been sent by any of their neighbours. The Broaduses, who had still not fully moved in by this point, were now very concerned and spent much of the next 2 weeks extremely wary of those around them. During this time, while Derek was showing a neighbouring couple the renovation work they were carrying out, he was alarmed when the wife of the couple said, quote, "It'll be nice to have some young blood in the neighbourhood," end quote. Another morning, the general contractor for the Broaduses arrived to 657 Boulevard to find a sign he had hammered in previously had been ripped out from where it was placed. Then, when Maria was at home to check out paint samples, she went to check the mail. Inside was a card-shaped envelope with thick black lettering written on it. The Watcher had sent another letter. Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy, and I have been watching you unload cartfuls of your personal belongings. The dumpster is a nice touch. Have they found what's inside the walls yet? In time they will. The letter gave away personal information that the Watcher obtained, such as their surname, albeit spelled incorrectly, as well as the nicknames of the children, stating he had heard Maria shout these nicknames out while calling out for them. He had also pointed out one child in particular, writing that he had seen her using an easel inside the porch, asking, quote, "Is she the artist in the family?" end quote. The letter then goes into more disturbing detail. 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. Will they sleep in the attic? Or will you all sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. It will help me to know who is in which bedroom. Then I can plan better. All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I am the Watcher, and have been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on, and kindly sold it when I asked them to. I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession. And now you are too, Broadus family. Welcome to the product of your greed. Greed is what brought the past 3 families to 657 Boulevard, and now it has brought you to me. Have a happy moving in day. You know I'll be watching." After receiving this frightening letter, Derek and Maria stopped bringing the children to 657 Boulevard. Doubts had also grown between the pair as to whether they would actually move in at all at this point. After all, the letter now accurately described the locations of the children at the time of writing, indicating that whoever was writing the letters was close enough to obtain key personal information about the Broaduses. Derek and Maria went back to the police to report the letter, and also hired a private investigator to look into finding out who was sending these eerie letters, but neither would be able to confirm who was truly responsible. Several weeks after the second letter, a third one arrived, which simply read, "Where have you gone to? 657 Boulevard is missing you." Just 6 months after purchasing their dream home and completing the renovation work, Derek and Maria decided against moving in altogether and decided to put the home up for sale. By this point, the investigation had hit a brick wall. Police were unable to find fingerprints on the letters, and there was no way to trace them back to its original sender. The couple who, along with their children, were living with Maria's parents after selling their last home. Not only were they paying for living costs there, but they continued to pay costs associated with their new home. The ordeal had understandably been traumatic for both. Derek was now suffering with depression, while Maria, who had been seeing a therapist, had been suffering with PTSD. Despite putting the house up for sale, the Broaduses were struggling to find suitable buyers. By now, word had got around the neighbourhood regarding the strange goings-on at 657 Boulevard, leading to many potential buyers being put off from buying the home. As the Woods family failed to disclose the letter they had received shortly before moving out, Derek and Maria decided to sue the Woods in June 2015. A local journalist who was searching through the court documents learned of the Watchers' letters and released an article covering the strange events taking place there. It was at this point that the case went viral and became known nationwide. The case itself would eventually be thrown out of court. Given that it was nigh on impossible to sell the house now, the Broaduses instead had the idea to sell the home to a developer who would tear the home down and build 2 smaller homes. There was an issue though. The 2 homes would be 3 feet too small for the mandated size the homes required to be within the neighbourhood. The Broaduses would appeal this to the neighbourhood planning board, but they would unanimously vote against approving the plans from going ahead. This was another huge setback for the Broaduses, Maria in particular, who felt betrayed by the very community she grew up in. Maria would go on to say that, quote, "This is my town. I grew up here. I came back. I chose to raise my kids here. You know what we've been through. You had the ability. 2.5 years into a nightmare to make it a little better. And you have decided that this house is more important than we are." That Christmas in 2017, locals who were vocal against the Broaduses' proposal would receive letters themselves, handwritten letters titled "Friends of the Broadus Family." Spring of 2016 saw a change of fortune for the Broaduses. Unable to sell the home and still having to make regular payments required, they decided to rent the home out instead. They would find a family who expressed an interest in renting out 657 Boulevard. This family had 2 big dogs and adult children. Derek and Maria were open about the letters from the Watcher and had it written into their rental agreement that the couple could move out of the home should the letters start arriving again. And just 2 weeks after the family moved in, another letter arrived. Violent winds and bitter cold, to the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife Maria. You wonder who the Watcher is. Turn around, idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me. One of the so-called neighbours who had no idea who the Watcher could be. Or maybe you do know and are too scared to tell anyone. Good move. I walked by the news trucks when they took over my neighbourhood and mocked me. I watched as you watched from the dark house in an attempt to find me. Telescopes and binoculars are wonderful inventions. 657 Boulevard survived your attempted assault and stood strong with its army of supporters barricading its gates. My soldiers of the Boulevard followed my orders to a T. They carried out their mission and saved the soul of 657 Boulevard with my orders. All hail the Watcher. The letter also went into detail about how the Watcher may exact revenge on the Broaduses for this supposed assault on 657 Boulevard. Maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away but makes you fell sick day after day after day after day after day. Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break. You are despised by the house, and the Watcher won. Amazingly, despite the threatening tone of the letter, the renters, while understandably shaken by the letter, were still willing to stay in the home, on the condition that Derek and Maria installed additional surveillance cameras around the home. At this point, it's worth reviewing the theories surrounding this strange case, as well as examining arguments for and against them being the now infamous Watcher. Initially, the attention was placed on the neighbourhood itself. It seemed likely that whoever was sending the letters knew the area well and was possibly living close to 657 Boulevard. Michael Langford would be one of the first people on the police radar during their investigation. He, along with his mother, siblings, and late father, who died 12 years prior to the sending of the letters, lived next door to 657 Boulevard. The Langford family were described as strange, but for the most part, totally harmless. However, their home was right next to the easel that the Watcher described seeing Derek and Maria's child using. Additionally, the family had been in the neighbourhood since the 1960s, which accounted for the decades that the Watcher claimed his father had been watching the house from. Michael Langford would be questioned by police after the first letter was sent, where he denied knowing anything about the letters. Although, after the following letters were sent, police believed it was more likely that Michael wasn't responsible for sending these letters, concluding that it would be reckless of him to do so. Additionally, while no fingerprints were found, DNA had been found on one of the letters. It was this DNA that ruled Michael Langford out of the investigation. The reason? The DNA found on one of the letters belonged to a woman. Michael's sister, Abby Langford, would be brought in under suspicion, as she had lost out on 657 Boulevard after being outbid by the Broaduses, but she too would be ruled out after DNA tests revealed that she failed to match the DNA found on the letter. It's also worth noting that the Broaduses, who are now working with police, wrote to the Langfords, telling them they planned to demolish the home. The Langfords never responded. Another suspect in the investigation was a man who was seen by police parked outside the Broaduses' home at approximately 11 PM one night. The car the man was driving was traced back to a woman who lived in a nearby town. Officers spoke with the man's girlfriend, who confirmed that the unnamed man lived on the same block as 657 Boulevard. She also said that he was into dark video games, and according to an investigator recalling the case from memory, she said he played as a character called the Watcher. Now, the man agreed to attending police interviews, but failed to show to each one. As police had no evidence to make an arrest, eventually they moved on to other potential candidates. So who else could be behind the letters? How about the Broaduses themselves? Up until just a few days before the Woods family received their letter, no one living in the home prior to them had ever reported any strange goings-on at 657 Boulevard. Nobody had felt as though someone was watching their home either. Instead, neighbours believed that it was more likely that the Broaduses were experiencing buyer's remorse after learning that they had upgraded from a $770,000 home to a $1.3 million home and a $315,000 home before that in just a decade. Some also believed that this was either some kind of insurance scam or perhaps even looking to achieve some kind of movie deal. Naturally, these theories didn't hold water. For a start, it's entirely possible that the Broaduses could afford more expensive homes due to their economic situation. After all, America is supposed to be the land of opportunity. As for whether it was a scam or some plot to get a movie deal, it was no secret that the letters took a huge mental toll on the family, who had fully renovated a home they couldn't bring themselves to live in. Additionally, once the story hit the mainstream, there were offers made to the Broaduses, but these offers were initially turned down by them. They even issued a cease and desist order to Lifetime after they released a film called The Watcher. Although, I should point out that Netflix have since struck a deal with the family and are releasing a series titled The Watcher, starring Naomi Watts. It's planned for release in 2022. Furthermore, Maria was also DNA tested and found not to be a match to the DNA found on the letters, ruling her out. As for Derek, while there would be no need for him to carry out a DNA test, he would reveal that the letters titled Friends of the Broadus Family were actually penned by him. His reasoning, he said, was that he was at his wit's end with the entire situation. He had become obsessed with the Watcher, and given the lack of support he and his family had received over the entire ordeal, he decided to write to those who were outspoken against them as a way of venting his frustration. However, he firmly denies any involvement with any of the other letters sent to their home, as well as denying responsibility for the letters sent to the Woods or his tenants. It was also revealed that another family had received a letter from the Watcher at around the same time that Derek and Maria received their first letter. However, like the Woods family, this household assumed it to be nothing more than a prank and threw away the letter. This further goes against the theory that Derek and Maria were themselves the Watcher, as why would they feel the need to write a letter to someone else, when the apparent objective of the letters, if true, was to either get out of paying for the home or securing a lucrative television or movie deal. The thing about this case is, as it really isn't that old, who knows if the letters have finally stopped. Sure, there haven't been any delivered to 657 Boulevard for several years now, and in all likelihood there probably won't be any more. But it would be fascinating if there were further developments to this incredibly strange case. It'll also be interesting to see how true to form the Netflix adaptation of this story will be. Knowing them, they'll add some sort of supernatural element, but let's be honest, it really isn't needed. In terms of the investigation, it's pretty much dead in the water. Unless any new evidence comes to light, chances are this case is destined for a place in the cold files. Derek and Maria have since managed to sell 657 Boulevard. However, the memories of that home still haunt them both to this day. But let me know what you think. Leave a comment below telling me what you think was going on at 657 Boulevard, and let me know whether you'd stay in a house that was being watched. Who knows? Perhaps you already are. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, watch that like button until you receive a letter in the mail, and subscribe to the channel so you can keep a close eye out for when I upload a new video. Consider also sharing this video to anyone you know who shares an interest in true crime content, as it really helps the channel out. Sometimes, being watched isn't seriously a bad thing. Until next time, take care and goodbye. for now.